We're going to talk about immigration. Your administration separated children from their parents at the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero-tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500 children. So how will these families ever be reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people.
First of all, that's not true. Second of all, most immigrants actually commit less crimes than people who are just natural citizens. And third of all, you're racist.
Cartels, and they're brought here, and they used to use them to get into our country. We now have as strong a border as we've ever had. We're over 400 miles of brand new wall.
Of those 400 miles, most of it was just replacing pre-existing border fence. Also, the border is 2,000 miles long.
You see the numbers, and we let people in, but they have to come in legally, and they come in through
But
merit.
how will you reunite these kids with their families,
Let me just tell you,
Mr. President?
they built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages, and then they had a picture in a certain newspaper, and it was a picture of these horrible cages, and they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them, and then it was determined they were built in 2014. That was him.
Do you have a plan to reunite the kids?
The detention facilities had chain link fences, but they were not cages.
Yes, we're working on it we're trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Trump, literally just doesn't care about the immigrant children. He just does not care. I mean, he's being pressed on this, and this should be a layup. It should be a softball, but instead, he just curves right back around to xenophobia.
These 500-plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. Real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Very powerful.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
they
to that?
They did it. We changed.
Did not
They built the
separate
cages.
the
Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what
Who built the cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about. What happened? Parents were ripped, their kids were ripped from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 of sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you about
I will say this.
immigration.
They went
10
down.
seconds,
We
and
brought
then I need to ask
reporters,
you.
everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
Oh my God, that's so creepy. First of all, the facilities were not clean and comfy as he suggests. They detained so many people that they just shoved everybody into these small facilities where there wasn't enough space. Hot meals were not served, and everybody just slept on the floor. Disease and sickness ran rampant because everybody was just so cramped in. And even if the facilities were so great as he suggests, that still doesn't justify separating children from their parents. That's like some creepy dude offering candy to children in exchange for entering his windowless white van.
Some of them haven't been reunited
But
with
just
their
ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask him that. Who built the cages?
Let me ask about your immigration policy, Mr. Vice President. The Obama administration did fail to deliver immigration reform, which had been a key promise during the administration. It also presided over record deportations as well as family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because it made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy, and they want to do that, is they've gone to a country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River, and it's illegal. And you say, oh, no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you. They've been here. Many of them are model citizens.
Technically, they're not citizens.
Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis.
Whoa.
We owe them. We owe them.
President
Kristen,
Trump,
he
your
had
reaction.
8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've
We
changed
did.
without having a specific. We got rid of catch and release.
That's bad, you know? I mean, they're not dangerous people.
We got rid of a lot of horrible things that they put in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President
Wrong.
Biden, your response.
The catch and release, you know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came across and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing. They were released. And guess what? They showed up for a hearing. And this is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise, why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
It just shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws. Catch and release is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in, a very bad person would come in.
Oh my god, you're so fucking racist. Immigrants, by and large, are less likely to commit crimes than people who were born here.
We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back.
First of all, most people who are released do, in fact, come back. And of the people who don't, a lot of them don't because they can't pay for transportation or that sort of thing, or they simply forgot and need to be reminded.
We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years. We're going to give you a court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe. They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ.
So fucking racist. He literally doesn't care that people are treated fairly under the law. He just doesn't care. As long as you're brown, he just does not care if you just get imprisoned for years at a time.
They might come back.
Okay,
but they're
President
very,
Trump, let's
very
give
few.
Vice President.
Know the law, what he's telling you is simply not true.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
Check it out.
All right, let's move on.
But we don't have to
the
worry
next
about it because they
section.
terminated it, so we don't have to worry about
Let's
it
move
anymore.
on to the next
And you have
section.
525 kids not knowing where in God's name they're going to be and lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right, the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter,
This line of thought goes nowhere.
one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. What I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street. Making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, yes, yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making child of a $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is, there is institutional racism in America.
Yes, but the definitions are pretty dodgy and I kind of don't like them. Obviously, there's laws out there still that don't mention race specifically, but they are obviously designed with race in mind, and you can see that in the way that they're implemented. Other things like police tendencies to brutalize black people more often and those sorts of things, those are also statistically verifiable, but I don't know why we call that systemic racism. It's like individual police officers doing it in large enough numbers that it shows up in the stats.
And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. Well, guess what?
Fact check, we were evolved and not created at all. Also, we're not equal. Obviously, Donald Trump is inferior to you.
We have never, ever lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion.
I I mean, the needle has moved back and forth for a while. I mean, after Reconstruction, they implemented Jim Crow and actually kind of undid a lot of the progress that we originally had and implemented segregation. Only after the civil rights laws were passed that kind of got fixed, and now we have the drug war and other forms of discrimination. So it's not constant progress in America, I'm afraid.
Not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we can do, and I've laid out a clear plan as to how to do those things, just to give people a shot. It's about accumulating the ability to have wealth as well as it is to be free from violence.
Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the black community. And they were called, and he called them super predators.
That was Crooked Hillary.
And he said that. He said it, super predators. And they have never lived that down. 1994, your crime bill, the super predators. Nobody has done more for the black community than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal justice reform, Obama and Joe didn't do it. I don't even think they tried because they had no chance at doing it.
No, they tried, but their legislation took long enough that they actually passed it under your administration where you signed it instead and took credit for it. Some pointless tall tale.
Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina. He came in with this incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it. Tremendous investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the black and Hispanic communities.
There is no evidence that opportunity zones have meaningfully benefited the black residents around them.
And then historically black colleges and universities.
Well, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel on that one, aren't you? From the war on drugs, your attack on low-income housing requirements, your disastrous immigration policy, not to mention you stirring up racial divisions like nobody else, your record on race is awful. A probably made-up personal anecdote.
I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill in the law for a while, this is a guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people. He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were guilty of the crimes they were suggested. Granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences, over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories and set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation.
Yes! Finally!
Not to jail. We should fundamentally change the system, and that's what I'm going to do.
But why didn't he do it 4 years ago?
And he's running so he can get more done. Why do you keep returning to this line?
I ran because of you.
And Joe's running because of you, so it all comes full circle, no?
I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is you know who I am. You know who he is. You know his character. You know my character. You know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
And then we're going to have
stuff
follow-up
is true
questions.
about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq. If this is true,
It's not.
then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
And
You
that's
gotta
exactly
be.
what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
what.
This
was
is
told.
where he's going. The laptop is Russia,
Yes.
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President?
again with Russia.
I don't even know what to say. I mean, one of them is peddling a conspiracy theory, and the other one is calling that conspiracy theory a part of another conspiracy. Ugh.
You've described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired.
And this guy is the one who stands for free speech and against cancel culture.
What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing.
Come on, just say it. You hate Black Lives Matter.
As far as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people.
Is he seriously all lives mattering right now? God.
I am the least racist person in this room.
What do you say to Americans who are concerned by that?
I don't know what to say. I got criminal justice reform done, and prison reform, and opportunity zones. I took care of black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It makes me sad because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark. But I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Let me remind you that this is the same guy who early in his career implemented discriminatory housing policies and actually has released ads basically dog whistling the Jewish question. He's literally a Nazi.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready.
Technically, it's the Proud Boys, and he said stand back and stand by.
Come on. This guy is a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
Hey.
He made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said
where
you're
did that-
Abraham
No,
Lincoln.
where did that? No.
You said-
I said not since Abraham Lincoln.
What even is this?
Crime bill, which put
Oh, God.
tens of thousands of black men, mostly, in jail.
All right, let me-
And you know
let me
what?
a- let me
they
ask
remember
Vice
it
President
because if you
Biden
look
a
at what's
question.
happening with the voting right now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that
Biden
you treated them
about
very, very badly.
the-
Just take a look at what's happening out there.
Crime bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession.
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change the sense and particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money. That's why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done because I think the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to drug. But they were not in the crime bill.
But
Okay,
why
so-
didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these politicians.
Ugh, so annoying.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. There were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on, but we began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President
Because
Biden,
we had
and
a
then we're going
different-
to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress.
There you go.
That's the answer.
Well, you
Okay.
got to talk him into it, Joe.
Fuck, he's so
We're
creepy.
going to move on to our next section,
Like I
which
did
is
with criminal
climate
justice
change.
reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen,
You did what we
we're running out of
already done.
time.
So Trump's main points here were criminal justice reform, which started under Obama, historically black colleges, and opportunity zones, which don't even help that much. And these claims went largely uncontested, but they're still rather unimpressive. He did take some jabs at Biden's record, though I doubt that's gonna stick. But most importantly, he just kept racist dog whistling all over the place, so what are you gonna do?